Okay. This is going to be the last video that I do myself anyway, in sort of placing my views on it. I've done I've done a short and long version on I guess more the science and a approach where, I would say, it comes from, your average look at, whether an AI generated image is you. But this, I would say, is the real answer. And, maybe the first thing, you'll look at me on is why, why am I only saying this now when I've made 2 videos? But the reason why is because this is more of a spiritual approach. And I don't think, unless you've gone on a bit of a spiritual journey, enough to understand like what goes on, then I don't think I can explain it. So we're both coming from the same understanding, and there's no way that I can explain it in 40 minutes, or that's what I'm going to try and do, or an hour. But I still think that, I sort of already know if anyone watches this and if there's any gets an engagement, I'm going to sort of actually try to do something like that. But anyway, if it's not and it doesn't go anywhere, if I get these questions, I'm going to say this is my view, because it takes a long time to explain it all, and people usually switch off halfway through. So if someone really, hopefully they would watch it, and that proves that they are actually interested in my reply. So first, if this is where you've come to first, then I'll have to explain what this is about again, so we have a good starting point. So this is about, is an AI generated image you? So, and when I say that, I don't mean like muscly person or Spider-Man or anything like that. I mean an actual portrait that looks like you. People look at it and go, that's you. And if maybe with the technology the way it's going, and arguably so, with the even has imperfections now, people could mistake that AI image for you. Okay, so that's sort of where this is, and why I have bothered to make 3 videos about this when I do like a video a year or something, is I saw on LinkedIn and on YouTube 2 examples of where people have already done this, and they haven't really talked about a deeper question of whether it's you or not. The answer is no, it's not you. And the answer is when I take a photo, it's not you. And the answer is, when you look in a mirror, it's not you. And when you, look in the reflection in the water, it's not you. So the answer is none of them are you. And in the other videos, I don't say that, because to understand why it's still wrong, it's going to take a lot of explaining. But I think it's worth doing. And I think if you want the spiritual view from, it's my view of it, of course, but it's my spiritual beginning of explaining it, not my sort of practical explanation. We need to, anyway, we need to, got a lot of notes. We need to get back to why. So I saw these 2 things. One is by Ruben Hassid. I think I pronounced that right, Hassid. And he is someone who's very influential and comes from AI. And then the other one is Moses Pinney Sillick, I think. Pini and then Silic, SILUK. That was the photographer. And I had a discussion with Moses about, and what they did, sorry, let me explain. What they did is he did a photo shoot, a headshot, a portrait, and then they used that image from that shoot to create AI generated versions. And at not one point in that discussion there was any discussion about whether an AI generated image is you. It was just presented as if you've accepted that and which one is better. And the discussions, I guess, of jobs and if you're replacing and all that stuff, which is a lot to talk about there. But that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, is the AI generated image you? And I asked Moses on a long discussion, and I challenged him on stating in public that he believes that an AI generated image is him, so much so that he would use that in social media to represent himself, and state that I think this image is so much me that this is me. He didn't. Once we got to that sort of point, he said, I agree with you 100%. AI generated images are not you. All right. Now we'll come to why a photo is not you and everything later. So give me a chance. Like we get there. But at the moment, let's just talk in the context of where I'm getting this from. Ruben, I also asked, but I asked on the post, but it was quite an old post now, and I messaged him privately, and a DM, I think it's called, and he replied, and I think this is right. Actually, I better get it right. Hang on, I should really have looked this up. Hang on. Because I copied and pasted this in. Okay, all right. Okay, it's nearly all here. So I got, we didn't wait. So this is Ruben's reply. We didn't wait for AI to make a augmented version of ourselves, CF Photoshop. AI made it easier, more accessible. Even without AI or Photoshop, people sometimes leave a profile picture from 20 years ago, which, and image manipulation is as old as time. Well, I get what he's saying, but like he doesn't answer. And my question above, which I'm doing, which I can leave copies, but I don't think it's important. I don't want to start getting bogged down with what I said and what he said. I just, and even like, anyway, let's not get bogged down too much. But I was challenging him to basically do the thing that I said. I think, do you believe that an AI image is you? And I also mentioned that Moses replied saying he doesn't. And I'm basically, pushing him to say, yes, I do, or no, I don't believe that an AI generated image is of me, which he didn't do. Which I always think is telling, actually, because if you ask me, I have no. It's a clear answer. But anyway, I will ask him again. But obviously, if you ask me in a spiritual sense, and this is what this video is going to be about, whether my photo of you is you, then the answer is also no. But I guess the reason why I didn't mention it in the other ones is because you need to understand a lot about why that is no, and why the no for an AI generated image is still, the right answer, and why an image taken of you with photons and going down, which I'll explain in a minute, is more of a connection and means more, I guess. So let's, and the other one is Fstoppers, who's a YouTube channel, and they also did this headshot thing, and he used a software called Evoto, E-V-O-T-O, to do that. And that's, I don't really know the software. I'm generally Photoshop and that sort of world. So I've never used it, but it's not important. It's just the platform. You can do this with Google, Banana, and all the rest of them. And like, let's just state, I'm not totally against AI. I'm dyslexic, and I, it's good. Like, but I'm not talking about whether we like AI or not like AI. I am literally asking, is an AI generated image you? And it's not, I believe. So they had done the thing where he's generated a load of pictures of himself, and he's chatting about the job losses and everything. I'll put the links in or whatever. But it's not. Let's just agree that it's not about whether it's him or not. And then the company who did that had such a backlash from photographers or whoever's using it that it's stripping away what they do, or I'm not really sure all the arguments, but I think that was one of the main ones. That they had another. So the first video is called "Photographers Finally Realize AI is One," and the next one is "I Confront Evoto Marketing Manager." Now, none of the conversations here are about whether it's you or not. It's just about more of the next step. I've already accepted it's me, and now I see my jobs going, or I see whatever it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So then the marketing manager, I thought it was the CEO in the article. I'm wrong. It's the marketing manager. It's doing damage control, and they're never going to do it again. And they're testing the water. It's obvious what they've done. And the backlash was enough on more of the grounds of like jobs and things, and then I don't know what they are, but anyway, that's what those videos are about. But they're not about this, and I would say that this is more of a important conversation to have with this and generally in AI than anything else. So now you have where it's come from. I sort of have to tell you a bit more about the spiritual side of this, because the answer is that a photo isn't you, an AI image generated is you, the mirror's not you. And to explain that, I can't. Like, that's why I didn't say it, because it'd take someone far more wiser than me, and I've looked to Michael Singer for a lot of this inspiration and learnings, I guess, teachings. But I understand it enough for me in my life, and it took me till sort of mid-40s for this to be important enough, because I'd stored so much stuff for it to become part of my life. And I truly believe it should be part of everyone's life way earlier than where I was introduced to it by my wife, who's very wise. So I'm gonna have to explain a little bit, because otherwise I can't explain anything. So let's do that. And my notes are now I'm not sure where I am, but I'm gonna try and explain a little bit. And please do not take this as the answer, because you should do your own work. It's not 15 minutes or however long we are in a thing. Hang on, I'm gonna reconnect to my camera so I can see the time, how long I'm chatting for, so it's not 2 hours and maybe just an hour. Okay, so we're at 40 minutes. So let's get back. The first thing that he one of the first things he explains is your understanding of what a moment is. And when you look at it like this, they're very special. They have a lot more substance and meaning. So, and again, don't take this as study or anything. This is just me vaguely bringing up these points to get to a point where when I say an AI generated image is not you, and when I also say a photo is you, there's a distinction. between them. So you understand that I truly believe that the photography route with photons and everything is more important and valuable than an AI-generated image. And I don't think we should ever present an AI-generated image as you, because it's not, although I'm saying they're both not. So anyway, round and round, I have to continue. So if we take the Big Bang, well, that's how far he goes back, and it's a very good point. And the Big Bang happened. I think there was plasma, and then we start to have the building blocks of stars through things happening, which I can't remember, but I have listened to about 5,000 times from his audiobooks. The stars are getting produced, and the stars produce all the elements. Here go into it way deeper, and scientists will go into it way deeper of how that happens and what we know. And we know a lot. It's amazing that we know all this. So that happens, then the elements are made, gravity happens, these are pulled down, and we create a star. And from that star, all these elements, sorry, backwards a bit, it's not making sense. I'll start again. So we have the Big Bang, then we have plasma, I think, and then somehow a star is born, which I can't quite remember, but it is born. And then a star is born, and as that is born, elements are formed, I think. And these elements eventually create planets and more stars, and we have the right conditions for Earth. Let's talk about Earth to form, and after billions of years, 13.8 billion, here we are. And if we take that, and if you listen to him say it, or scientists say it, or it's an amazing path to get here. And if you embrace that and understand that it's taken that long for this moment to happen, there's a lot more focus on how important that moment is. It's been gifted to you. And you don't have any connection to that moment. So if I wasn't born, my mum and dad didn't meet, then this moment would still happen in some form without me. I'm not connected to it. And once you start to understand that, that's a deeper level. This is proper deep stuff, and I can't explain it in 8 minutes, in an hour. It's never going to happen. But I will try to open the door, so when I say the thing at the end, you'll understand why it matters that both are no, but one is a proper no, and the other one is a respectful connection to an event, although I know it's not me. Which way I'm going to try and get to. I tried. It's very hard to get all this out in a way that's understandable and in a way that doesn't, crucify the teachings. But I'm trying. So we now know that how long it took for this moment to happen, and we also know we have no connection to it. And another example would be if I go and see the sea and and on the beach and I look at the sea, I'm not seeing all the sea, am I? I'm seeing one little part of it, and then I'm imagining the rest of it, and everything else is still going on. Just because I'm viewing that, everything else carries on. If I'm not there, it still carries on. So we have no connection to what's going on. And that's with other people as well. I can't control, I can try and convince you, but I have no, there's no connection or anything to say that I can, that it matters, it's your views. There's no connection there. So then also when we look at who we are and who we are, we have, and this is going to be very bad, and I'm sorry, Michael Singer, and I'm just trying to do it for a reason. But please, if you really want to go into this stuff, then you have to properly do it. I do it, half an hour every morning to try and reprogram and have a good life, a good spiritual life. So I'll strip it down that when we look out, we have images come in. So, our eyes, these are photons, and this is where the camera goes. So the photons are coming from the sun, they're coming through our atmosphere, they're coming onto the things around me, and they're reflecting off them, and I'm looking at the reflection, okay, in my mind. And my mind will be stimulated by that and will think. We have a voice. If you ask yourself to say hello, in your head, it says hello. It is there. And those thoughts are always happening. And we don't really have a connection to what they're thinking. We have willpower. I can say hello. It says hello. That's willpower. But if I'm not doing anything, it would just do its thing. And it generally can be quite destructive. And a lot of people say, it's not very... He says a lot like, it's not very nice in there. And it can be nice in there. But, some of the reason why it isn't is because you've stored things and pushed things away. And the example he uses, I'm going too into detail here, but I don't know, it's very hard. That if you see a rattlesnake, and you don't like that, you'll push it away. And if you see a butterfly and it lands on you, and so you'll cling onto it. But both are generally bad, because if you push it away, let's say the snake, if you see a bit of rope, you'll connect it with the thing and say, I don't like rope. I know it's extreme, but like, let's say an X, you don't, the X, you've stored it in there. Then if there's a party and you're going to go to that party and that X may be there, you don't want to go because you've connected you've held onto it. And the other way is if the butterfly lands on, the next time you see a butterfly, you want it to land on you, and it wasn't as nice experience as what it was, and you want the other one. Or a sunset, that's the classic one that he says. You see a sunset, but you're only going to see that sunset once. Let's say you see a sunset and it's the most amazing and it touches you, and then you think, I need that. You build a house there and you live there and you think, I'm going to enjoy these sunsets. It will never be as good as the first sunset. It's gone. You've clung onto it and you want to reproduce that and hope, but it will never do. So there's that. It's very badly done. I'm sorry, Michael Singer. And then also we have our feelings, and generally what will happen is we have something enter, and our mind will think it, and we're storing things which will trigger and be pulled out, and that will generally be a connection from the thoughts of where they're coming from, and then we will have a feeling connected to that, and the feelings aren't anything to do with the mind. They're just feelings. We can't, like if I say I've thought a feeling, it doesn't happen here. Feelings happen, he says in your heart, but but it's not your physical heart, it's here. So, if you go to a party and your ex is there and you didn't want to be there and they're there, and then you say, oh no, sorry, I didn't want to be here, I knew it'd be here, I didn't. You'll have feelings come up and they'll generally line up. So we have the image coming in. We have thoughts. We also have images when we dream, and then we have the thoughts just happening. They're generally connected to things that we've stored, which is why we sort of generally program ourselves over years and years and years. Why, when you get to your 40s onwards, you end up, like, let's say, like if I look on a camera word, at one point I was like Nikon. I programmed myself to like Nikon. I moved over to the Sony, and I had to really sort of convince myself that but none of it matters. It's just things I've stored. Nikon did this good and that, and then that good and then that, and I bring up, am I going to move away from Nikon and Sony, and then it's sort of just noise. So I'm trying to explain that when something light comes in, we have our thoughts, we have feelings that come up, and that is like a machine that's going on. But we are not that, And I guess the deeper understanding of that is if we talk about you, or let's say me, then if you start to understand this, you start to understand that this is just a vessel, yeah? And this is one of the examples that he says, which I think is very good. If I was to take you and I was to put your head in let's say a room, and I'm gonna put you trust me, you're very, we have to look a little bit by that you would let this happen. Obviously, if you start analyzing it too much, it breaks. And your head is in one side of the room, and the other bit of your body, the rest of your body, is in another room. And you've trusted me to do this, and like whatever you want to make up in your head on how I can do this, but I'm going to start removing bits of your body. Yeah. And you're not going to know it's happening, but you trust, and let's say, afterwards I can put it all back together and you'll all be fine, and, nothing will happen. If you want to go Star Trek, you can go Star Trek. If you want to just make it, whatever. Yeah. The fact is that this can happen. And and as I'm talking to you, I'm going to take bits of, I've got surgeons, the best, or machines, or whatever is there. It's going to take bits of your body away. So it's going to take, I don't know, your fingers away, or your hand away, or your leg, or your lungs. We can take, a lot away. This is just how he says it, really, but a lot better and longer. To the point where, you suddenly think, am I still here? Like, if I cut off your arm and ask you, are you still you? I hope you say yes. Like, I haven't changed who you are. You're just now missing an arm. So we are not our mind, and we are not our feelings. And what comes in and what goes on is just a machine, and we're behind that. We're behind that. And that, when you start to understand that, words like being aware, centered, are words that will be used. And also, like, in a way, what are you there? People have used, spirit or soul. These are, I guess, if you very practical, which I am. I'm a very down-to-earth practical person. If you know me, I guess I just understand now the machine that's happening. So once you understand that you're behind these this machine, and you are not that, then that is, more about who you are. So let me put it another way. Like, some people say, and this is all just copied from him, but it is that I'm obviously using it because I believe in it. Is that, people say, I need to find myself, but there's no way of finding yourself. You are there, you are behind all this. That's where you are. So I know it's deep, and I know it's not like we're 28 minutes. Like, you're never gonna, if you haven't ever looked at this or understood this is not a video to understand, the centering yourself and who you are and what's going on. But it is a video to start introducing you to where I'm coming from with all this, to understand what I'm going to tell you next. And this is going to be an hour, so but I highly recommend you, this is the answer, not the other ones. This is the answer. And sadly, for you to understand it, you need to do some self-spiritual teachings to get it. So anyway, once we understand that we are here, then you understand that this is just a vessel and we're in it. If I chop off my hand, I'm still here. There's not a bit of me. I'm not a little bit, as me gone. You start to understand that when I say, if this isn't you, then when I look in the mirror, it isn't me. I'm behind that. My deeper being is behind, and if we take a picture, that's not me. I'm here behind the machine. And that's a very deep thing to understand. And I believe that everyone should understand it. But then if we come to what we're talking about in the other videos in here, which I'm now going to explain, when we start, all the answers is no, none of it's you. But I'm going to try and explain that we should be grateful for what we have. And I should be grateful that I have the technology and we've become, advanced enough to create a camera that I can record a moment and not only record that moment, but use technology to get it as close to that moment as I can. And then I have the creative medium to process that and edit that to a beautiful portrait that I've taken care and respect to create, to pass on to you, or have a portrait of me. And I would say where I'm coming from with all this is I respect. And don't get me wrong, like my whole career doing photography hasn't been this. I only really learned this in my 40s. I think I was just making nice pictures. But once you understand that it's taken 13.8 billion years to get here, with all the advancements to get there, to understand what's going on, to people to inspire me to understand the machine and that I'm behind it, and everything there, to be able to take a picture of someone and have the technology to show that, there's a lot of respect there and gratitude. And I guess why I think AI generated images are so, like I say that it's not you and everything, it's because I feel it's not really saying that it's not you, and nor is an image. I feel that it's a disrespect. It's the furthest point from gratitude and respect on the scale of a replicant, a copy of or an image of you. Like the image is not you, okay? But I respected the natural processes of light and technology to create the not you, the picture of you. And AI is the furthest point from that disrespects you. Yeah, it's 100%, it's taken 13.8 billion years. And you've chosen to have a reference image and a prompt and to create 100% generated image of the copy of you. There's no respect there for the 13.8 billion years of everything that it's taken to have that image of you. It's the opposite. It's you've totally disregarded creation for all that time, everything that's going on, to create a synthetic copy of you. I just think that's like very disrespectful for everything that's taken you to get to that moment. I know, like, we're at 34 minutes, and I know that's a hard push to explain it in this. Like, it really, it needs to be a properly discussed conversation with, someone who believes in AI, and, I guess people like me who, look deeper into it, and like a normal photographer who hasn't. I guess that's the real where this would come. And also, it takes so much teaching to understand all these. I've explained it in 20 minutes of that. That's not enough time. Let's agree on that. That's not enough time to explain this and to get the meaning behind it. But I'm trying. Yeah, and that's the next point. can I handle it? That's something I need you to understand as well. And I mentioned this in the other one because I think this is an important point. But again, where I'm coming from all this is from a more of a spiritual, deeper level, and also that I am handling what's going on. And I explained it in the other one, but I'll quickly do it here. If someone cuts themselves and I can't deal with blood, I can't handle that, and I come to that situation, then I'm not going to be much good. I'm going to or feel faint, or I'm going to look away, or I'm not going to be able to concentrate. I'm not going to do much good in that situation. And the other one is, if you take that same sort of approach, where if you have, let's say, an adult yelling at a child, and I'm a witness to that, and I see that, and this is more challenging, which is why it's good to process it. And I look at that and think, I can't handle that. My starting point is I can't handle it. And then if we follow the decisions I will make in that situation, I would argue that they're not always going to be very good. Yeah, like maybe I'm an aggressive person. I start yelling at the person to not yell at that, and I create more of a fight. We end up fighting, or whatever the decisions are. If I come from a point where I can't handle that, I would say that your decisions are, in general, not every, but, let's not get bogged down, would be not that wise. But if I can look at it and I can handle what's going on, I'm not saying I'm agreeing with it, but I can handle it, I would say that my decisions if I want to do something about that would be a lot wiser and a lot more compassionate and a lot, come from a better place. And that's what all this is, really. Me trying to handle it. And there's moments in the other video where I'm like that, because it is a struggle. It's a struggle. I had things go on in my childhood, and I have to look back, and I have to approach that as in, I can handle it. Because if I don't, it's not a good starting point to be able to process it and to let it go. So that's handling it. What are we on? We're on 37 minutes. Now I'm going to try to quickly explain photography and the digital route, and then just reflect on what I'm trying to say very badly in a very short amount of time, that you should never, never, never judge that this is actually deep enough to have an opinion on it until you've done the work. So I'm going to explain how I get that image I did a photo of my dad, and I'll use that in this one as an example. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to talk very quickly. So with photography, it's about light. So with the sun and whatever, it's about light. I can produce it with flash or a light like this, whatever. It's light, photons. Photons will go to a person, let's say my dad this time, and I've in my portrait that I made, it was in the studio, and I've got lights, so it's lights that are creating it. And the photons are bouncing off him, they are reflecting back, they're going down the lens of the camera, and I'm going to take the lens off, but the light is coming down here. It's focusing on I will take it off. It's focusing on the sensor, which was filmed before with crystals, and that sensor is recording the data. I actually looked up after I did the other videos of how that actually is, and it doesn't matter, but it's quite interesting if you want to find that out. So that data is recorded as I guess ones and zeros, and what they generally are is a raw file. And as far as I know, again, none of this matters. Every image that's done is generally a raw file. Now, this is the raw file from my phone, okay? And I've taken a picture, and it's the raw file, and then I've just taken a normal picture on there, and it will process it. And what that means is you've got black, that's the darkest point, white, the blown out point, and let's say the middle, and the colors all in between. And it will process it. So let's say it's a sunset. We're looking at the sun. The sun is blown out. It's very bright, and all the things in front of me is very dark. It's contrasty, obviously, because we're looking at the sun. Don't look at the sun. Anyway, well, yeah. So what happens then is your camera will process it. It'll bring up the blacks. It will try to not blow out the whole area where the sun is, and it will make it, the colors richer, and it will do stuff, and it will process that, and that's the image you do, and that's why your image is always very good. It's doing a lot for you. Let's agree on that. And it's a lot of conversations to have here. We can debate, and this is probably why we are where we are now talking about all this. We've got skin smoothing, de-aging, taking a picture of your kid and skin smoothing is not a very good position to start, is it? So, let's agree that it's being processed. But you can take a picture, I think, with most modern phones now and get the raw file, but it will be quite a flat image if it's not. It's debatable whether it is actually processing something for you to see it. I don't know. But it won't be as good as the processed picture. And as a photographer, I've learned all this and I do it myself. Yeah, I still believe I'm better. So that's what's going on. But let's look at my camera here. What are we on? We're on 40 minutes. This is going to be a long video. If my camera, the data's this big. Yeah, it's more expensive. This is, with the lens and the grip and batteries and cards, it's like 10,000. This camera, and Sony, you should have protections because it's so expensive. Anyway, that's another thing. Anyway, so it's an expensive bit of kit, and this isn't even the latest one. But let's that's it, because it's got better technology in it. My data is bigger than your phone. Okay, it's better. So I get this, all right? So, all right, I don't need my torch. So my data is a lot longer, right? And I don't need that. But it's still the same principle, except I'm doing it myself. But there's a layer of I guess, knowledge that I've taught myself to get that image, my dad, skin tones and everything I can. The phone doesn't do that. It doesn't have a starting point, but I do. I have technology and knowledge. So I use, something like this, or this, and I ask my dad, which I did, to hold that there. And then there's a program that knows all that these colors are, and it's scanned in, and it'll make a profile for my camera. Okay, and then that gives me a very good, that means that when it's processed, which it has to be done, this raw file is not my dad as I see him. It's data, and that data needs to be processed. And I have to work hard to get it at that moment of my dad. It's not automatic. And I have to use knowledge and technology to get that image as close to him as I can. So I do that, and it adjusts all these things, and then I have to calibrate my monitor to represent these colors. So it isn't as if, when I'm viewing it on my monitor, it's not processed as well. The theory needs to be taken all the way from the camera, and the actual moment, because that's the actual moment, okay? Then that moment is taken into the camera and stored. That I have that data in here, and then because I have that data here, I can process it to be as close to that moment as possible. And then my monitor also needs to calibrate in the same. I'm not going to go into deep, but the same. And then if I print it with inks, which is, this is light, and I have to print it with inks, there's a conversion, and then that conversion, I have to print a chart out to scan that in to continue the whole process. So when that is printed, it's closest to that moment of when I took the picture. It does not automatically happen. I have to work hard to reproduce that moment. And I would argue now that we can get closer to that moment than we ever have done before. When we're, if we go back in saying we've had manipulation for years. But at the moment with my technology, I can get it pretty damn close to that image, right? Then after that, we can start processing it and editing it, and then we're getting away from that, let's call it 0. That's the closest I can get to my dad. And then everything we do after that, we're moving away from that. But I would say that when I edited my dad for 7 hours, I was very respectful to that moment. I respected it so much that I colored it and calibrated my monitor and spent a lot of time trying to get it to that moment that I respected my starting point as 0. And if you come to me, I can show you my starting point at 0. It's very respectful. And then I chose to create a portrait of my dad, which isn't identical. It's not why I took it, to take a perfect, if there's a bit of skin here or something. I didn't do it to recreate my dad in a picture. I did it to create a portrait. So I edited it, and also I styled it at the raw file level. So here I got it to this point where it's as close to him as possible, and then I changed a little bit to the style that I wanted, and then I edited for 7 hours. It's, all the little bits, it's a little bit of dead skin and a little bit of hair here, and I created a beautiful representation of my dad that is never my dad and never was my dad, but I had respect enough to get it as close to him, and then I had respect enough to take that portrait and care for it and think about it and edit it to the point where I felt that it was a beautiful portrait of my dad. But it is not my dad. But where I come from, my starting point, my belief, my care is always there. Okay, and we can debate of how far I've gone and shouldn't gone. That's why we're here in the first place. That is a debate to have, but I respected 13.8 billion years, the technology, the opportunities to create a beautiful portrait of my dad and everything that goes there, but I respected everything that's happened for that moment to happen. And I also, so much so that what I asked my dad to do when he looked at the camera was not smile, not like, hey, or anything like that. I asked him to think about something very important in his life. I didn't ask what it was. I asked my mum to do this, and I need to edit her, sorry mum, to look at the camera and think about that. Because I wanted that picture to be a beautiful photo that maybe has the opportunity to look a bit deeper. Now, that's the perfect example of something that's had respect. And not all my photography is that, but I guess this is the extreme that I think is a good example of me understanding 13 billion years and everything it's taken and everything and how we are and who we are and how we got here. And I have all this technology that I'm grateful for, and I've learned it, for many years and really tried to get a good starting point. And then I've creatively added my firstly, a understanding of why I'm taking the photo. So I've explained this to my dad, and it's a understanding of why he's there and what I'm trying to challenge him to do. And then I'm editing that with care, that I want a beautiful picture. I don't want the bit of skin. I've decided that that's not what this photo is about. And then I've edited it, and it sounds like a long time. This is on my channel. You can watch the 7 hours of me editing it, and you'll hear me whittle on about a load of things. I probably don't mention any of this, but I like to believe that because I've done enough of understanding the machine and everything, that's part of me now. It's not the videos weren't about me explaining spiritual journey. That I was respectful for that moment, and then I was creative to create the thing that I envisioned, that I have all the technology and the light and everything and the cameras, and I'm grateful that I have all this and the knowledge of all this to create something that I think is my dad and beautiful. But understand that that's not my dad, and I never thought it was. Now, let's look at AI. If I was to do all that? Well, let's say more on what it's used on, which is, a lot of people take the pictures with their phones. We're at 50 minutes. I would try. And remember what we have here and what's happened. It's already processed. Oh. All right, so here's the phone one. It's a raw file, and it's processed and filters. So there's maybe skin smoothers on it. So and there's no color or anything. Yeah. So I would argue there's less respect there. But obviously I don't think every shot should be. When I snap a picture of my son or something, I'm not worried about the respect. But I'm trying to illustrate that it matters where your thought patterns come from and where you're doing, to why I don't like to say that an AI generated image is respectful. I think it's disrespectful, because what you've done is you've taken your image, which is processed, so you're not at the 0%, you're somewhere above that to even begin with. So that's your reference, a percentage away from the best try, which is going to be quite a high percentage with these cameras. And then you've given that to AI with a prompt, and you've 100% generated a copy of the not you. Obviously that's not you, but there's respect there, I'd say. Even with the camera, when we've taken it, there's a certain amount of respect for that moment, because it has connection to the moment that was gifted to you with 13.8 billion years of evolution. When you look at an AI version, all this, it's gone. It's 100% generated, and I feel that that's disrespectful to everything that's been given to you. And I think that's why subconsciously a lot of people are so anti-AI, because I think it's a disrespectful approach to creativity. So yeah, I guess that's the deeper answer. And if you disagree with me and you think that, one, let's just agree that no image of any sort is you. And then think that when we create an image which isn't you, it's nice to have a respect for the moment in front of you when you click the button. If I take a picture of my son, I'm respecting that moment. That's a cherished moment, and I've decided to make an image of it that I can look back on or enjoy. If I then, imagine, you were to say, well, it's not that, and snapshots, that's why I have this as my family camera. It's just snapshots, they're just moments that I want to remember and cherish. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, let's say, my snapshot, there's I don't know, like he's 15 now, so I don't know, maybe, but let's say he's younger, there's a toy car there, and I don't like the toy car. I can remove it on here, but I would say that's, again, like, it's not a portrait. There isn't a care and an understanding of, we're creating something that's not, when I took a picture of my dad, it wasn't to create a moment that I always remember of in there. That would be me standing back and taking a picture with my phone of him in the studio with the lights in. That's to remember that. That wasn't the purpose of me doing it. It was for me to have a beautiful picture of my dad and to challenge him to look and maybe I explore something a bit deeper than a smile. And that's not what my shot of my son is. And if you're taking little cars out of the background and everything, you need to reflect on what you're doing, because the car doesn't matter. It's not why you took it. And you're taking that point away more and more. You're disrespecting that moment. And the more we disrespect it, the ultimate disrespect is just ditching it all and making a new one. And, I'd say, okay, it's a headshot, but, you are you. Yeah, you're behind there. There's you. It's a gift that you've got this. And even if it's, a tough life, which I've had, what would you rather have? There's a lot of nothingness out in the universe. If we go from our solar system to the next one, there's not much in between there to do. And thankfully, you are here on this planet with everything going on, with all this to create an AI generated image. Maybe that's a gift, but let's not get carried away and replace everything that's been given to you and say, actually, AI, that is such a better version. I'd rather be using that stuff than the stuff that I've been gifted. And that's why I'm so shocked that the headshots, none of this is sort of talked about. So, I guess if you are a believer that AI shot is respectful, let's say respectful and disrespectful. Let's say, I'm very respectful that I'm here and I have my body and my mind and my feelings and I'm behind that and I have the will to choose what I think. If obviously you can't control what you think, never try to quieten yourself. You'll never win. But, I can say hello and I can do it. I have the will. That's a very special thing, and that's who I am. And then I have the opportunity to, with all this technology, to record those moments so I can cherish them. And there's a lot of conversations to have about that on the spiritual level of how you do that and healthy ways and unhealthy ways. But, we can do that. So if we take that as very respectful, and then we take the approach of a snapshot that we leave and a portrait that we care about, and we go more the artistic route, I would say that is still respect. Maybe it's not zero respect, as in this is who, and we respect the moment that's happening in front of us all the time. And this is not really a way to look at it, but I'm just trying to illustrate a detachment, I guess. Then, let's say a photo is like, a snapshot is like, 2% disrespect. This just sounds wrong, me saying it. I don't really know how else to explain this. But then if we take, that we're editing it and we're smoothing skin out and we're de-aging and we're taking, I don't know, that we're saying that's starting to, it's not from creative and a choice. You're just, a process of, I want to look younger. I don't want that. I don't want this. I would say that, if you're doing that, you're slowly disrespecting the moment. And then if, let's say, you've got, your ex next to you in the photo and you say, I don't want my ex, and you delete your ex, I'd say, we're starting to clock up on the percentages here. And then as these percentages go up, and I recently saw that you can do a video and it would do all this live, as it's happening. This is more and more and more disrespecting everything that's been given to you. 13.8 billion years, all this, and you're just sort of pushing it away and disrespecting it more and more. And then the 100% of disrespect is a totally generated image. And like when I say AI, like all the slop of people, I've seen sharks windsurfing. I've seen people, males in sequin dresses. I've seen a lot, and I'm not talking about all that. I don't agree with any of that, but there's nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I can say that, I can't control it, but. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you create something that you're trying to create reality. a portrait. Or a reality where you're in your room and it keeps the room, but you're just changing who you are, and that type of stuff. When you're trying to do that, I would say you're at 100% disrespecting the moment or the past moment, and I think that's wrong. I think it's so wrong that I've now chatted an hour and done 2 other videos of why I think it's wrong. And let me just finish up. I am sort of repeating myself, which I do a lot. And my wife says, short version, long version. This is the long version. And I'm not going to do a short version. Is if you do believe that that's not disrespect and that's respectful, I challenge you to stand by it. Yeah, I don't challenge you to, when I ask it, do you think that AI generated image is you, to then spiel off we've had editing for a while and Photoshop and everything. It's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you think that AI generated image is you, and enough you that you present that, in my view, disrespectfully to everyone as you. And I'd take it a step further. Not only do I want you to do the process and show a AI generated proper portrait of you and stay under it, that you believe that that's you enough that you think it's respectable to and that's the difference with this video. For me, it's about respect and disrespect of everything that's been gifted to you through creation, which is a deeper, you can't do this in half an hour. If you don't understand this and you don't understand a bit about the spiritual and how things work, I say you should at least look into that before you challenge me or come to me with your thoughts. You need to come from a place of understanding. I challenge you to put that image there and say that this AI generated image is you, and you respectfully believe that. So much so that as far as you're concerned, that's a respect of the moment. But also ask someone else to do it that you love. So, imagine, me, I would go to my mum and I would get her to, I'd take a picture of her, or she'd do a selfie, and then, put whatever you need on there to do do this image in the style of, I can't remember the headshot photographer, that's the way that Fstoppers did it. And it creates an image, and they post it on, social media and state that, they also, and you have to convince them to do this. If you can't convince them, then, that says something. Because I can't, I don't want the portrait of me to be AI generated, and I don't believe it's respectful. And, I think it's disrespectful at the moment. And I don't want to sit and ask my son to do the process and for him to ever believe that AI image is himself. And, to get to this deeper spiritual level, he would have to also understand it all, to use the word respect. He would have to use the word, well, he does understand, but I've been doing this for I don't know, on and off for sort of 8 years or something. I still struggle with it. So yeah, I never want him to have an AI generated image, a portrait of himself, and him to ever believe that it's him. And that's it, really. I saw the hope. What are we on? I got near an hour. I thought 40 minutes, but we're at an hour. So that's it, really. I'm not sure if I've explained it very well. I've tried to, and I've tried to come from a place where it shows that I've thought about this and understood things to explain it. So yeah, I'll leave it there. If you want to go on this journey and look a bit deeper into it, and you want to ask people to do it, then I suggest you do the same. Learn where it comes from, learn how all this works, understand who you are, and then also think, if someone does believe that an AI-generated image is them, then challenge them to stand by that. And if you get replies where they're never actually ever saying yes or no, I would say that they truly, deep down, understand that it's disrespectful. They just don't know it yet, or they don't understand it yet. They just have a feeling, the them in there, has a, Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going round and round in circles, which my wife tells me a lot, and I'm sorry if I have. But that's the spiritual answer to if that AI image is you or not. The answer is no, but also it means no images are you. You are here, inside. And the more that you do to an image, and I do a lot to try and get to point zero, you could argue that the more disrespect you have for that moment. Obviously, there's a big discussion here, but once you start getting further and further, I would say it's easier to understand the word disrespect. And when you're at an AI image where you've taken a snapshot and you've process it into a portrait, I would say that's 100% disrespect for you and the moment. And that's where I'll leave it. Thank you. That was something.